It was built by successive dynasties on the ruins of Kublai's great capital. Its importance to China owes much to the builders of Dadu, not least because it has remained the capital of a united China ever since Kublai decreed it so 700 years ago. Within the space of just 3 generations, the Mongols had gone from barbaric destroyers to builders of cities. And the Mongols left another legacy, though this is one that they didn't build: the Great Wall. Built by the successors to the Yuan, the Ming dynasty, it was a formidable declaration by the Chinese that they would never again allow their country to be occupied and ruled by foreigners. The Great Wall marked the end of China's trade and intellectual links with the outside world. It marked a return to a traditional, inward-looking way of life. But during that brief period when the Mongols ruled Asia and people and knowledge could move between East and West, the world changed beyond recognition. For example, the Chinese had for centuries printed their most valuable texts from wooden blocks. Thus, papers and books could be printed in unlimited copies. Movable type followed soon afterwards. By the 15th century, printers in the West were doing the same. Gunpowder also had its genesis in the East. The Mongols first encountered it during their sieges of Chinese cities. 10 years later, Hungarian chroniclers recorded its use by the invading Mongol army of 1241. There were also more prosaic ideas from the East. Noodles. Venetian merchants imported the delicacy to Italy: spaghetti. There was another import from the Mongol Empire that had its effect on Europe. In 1346, the Black Death was first recorded among Mongols laying siege to the town of Kaffa on the Black Sea. Within 30 years, this unknown Asian disease had spread as far as France and Britain. It killed 1 in 3 of all the peoples of Europe. By then, the Mongol Empire itself had already begun to disintegrate. First to go was the Ilkhanate in Persia, followed 30 years later by China. The last Khanate to hold out was the Golden Horde, which survived in fragments for almost 300 years. Today, the Mongol homeland has shrunk to a remote enclave. It is back where it all began. The hard realities of the modern political world have left it isolated between the 2 empires of Russia and China. Today, Mongols are struggling to find a role for themselves in the modern world, a world dominated by the city. Over recent years, tens of thousands of them have abandoned the land and sought the alleged attractions of urban life. Above them are the tower blocks that came with the promises of Soviet communism. Under the dictatorship of communism, Mongolia was crudely industrialized, and the ramshackle legacy of that recent era is seen almost everywhere around its capital and only city, Ulaanbaatar. Now that the Russians have gone, the Mongols have discovered that their country is virtually bankrupt, and the Russian-built factories and power stations are collapsing around them. There are no engineers to operate them, no resources to pay for spare parts. In the winter, the cities freeze, and the power stations belch wasted heat into the sky. For the last 80 or 90 years, the Mongols have been the tools of other people's empires. They have been swept along towards other people's goals. Now, at the end of the century, as they close yet another chapter, communism, in their long history, they are asking themselves, what next? Where from here? For the people who have stayed on the land, little has changed and little will change. Their lives are bound up in the cycles of the seasons and the needs of their herds. Most Mongolians no longer live this close to the old nomadic life. For the majority, new rituals and new customs have had to be invented. To the traditional Nardam festival, a kind of Mongol tournament of archery, wrestling and horse racing, ancient nomadic skills, present-day Mongols have grafted the celebration of their once glorious history. The whole festival has become an instrument of a revived nationalism, a distraction from the realities of the here and now. Ancient heroes are brought to life, battles are re-fought, cities reconquered, and the sayings of long-dead Khans turned into song. These evocations of the past have permeated almost all aspects of life today, from politics to pop music. Even members of the Mongolian regular army are paraded before the crowds in the costume of their ancestors. Mongolia, with a shattered present and an uncertain future, is forever looking over its shoulder at what used to be. The nation's ancient history is the one thing that remains certain. Nevertheless, behind all the pageantry and costumed heroics, Mongolians carry in their hearts a deep devotion to the spirit of one man. A nomad who united the steppe tribes, forged a single nation, and set it on the path to world conquest. Ordinary Mongolians still offer up prayers to the spirit of Genghis Khan. They remember a time when they ruled over the greatest land empire the world has ever seen.